Ladies and gentlemen, the 2024 NFL regular season schedule is officially out for all 32 teams. Minnesota Vikings released theirs exactly at 7 o'clock Central Time, which is what every single team did. And I got to say, hey, I'm pretty pumped up about this schedule. It's not a lot of hard games. There's a couple games here and there where you're like, okay, probably not going to get win that one. There's a couple revenge games like the Houston Texans, the Atlanta Falcons, but they're noon games, which is kind of interesting, especially the Atlanta Falcons one with Kirk Cousins and stuff like that. Would have loved to see him on prime time because we all know Kirk in prime time is not the greatest thing in the world. But let's get right into it. All right, let's show you guys the 2024 Minnesota Vikings official schedule. So out of all these games right here, we're starting the season off with the New York Giants. That's a noon game, September 8th. Cannot wait for that one. That is in New York. I honestly feel like the Vikings could take that game from New York, but we have had some trouble with them in the past. Danny Dimes and the boys could be slinging it up, but at the same time, they did lose Saquon Barkley, so it's going to be interesting to see how that offense kind of looks going into the season, because obviously, their wide receiver core isn't the greatest thing in the world. They did, I want to say, pick up a receiver in the draft, or no, they picked up an offensive lineman. I think it was like J.C. Latham or whatever it was. But I think the Vikings can take week one. Hopefully, it's a little different story than last year against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers week one, but that should be a good one. Then week two, the inevitable big fat L that we're going to take, the San Francisco 49ers. They're coming to town. Okay, they'll be at Minnesota. Going to be a tough game. Obviously, the team that went to the Super Bowl this past season, lost to the Chiefs, but it's still a very good team. They still have more pieces that they've added. Defensively, they look great. Offensively, they look great. This is going to be a tough game. I see us losing this one. So currently, after week two, we'll be sitting, for me anyways, at 1-1. Then we have week three, the revenge game against the Houston Texans. Daniil Hunter coming back to Minnesota. That is going to be an exciting football game. However, with what Houston did last season and how their team kind of looks currently, if you just look at their team on paper compared to the Minnesota Vikings, I honestly would say Houston's going to take this one. C.J. Stroud and the boys are humming. They look really good on offense, and now they added, Daniil Hunter, who's an absolute freak of nature at the edge position. So that's going to be a very tough game. Could we come away with a dub there? Yes, obviously we can come away with a dub every single week. I think it's going to be just a little tougher, though, just because, again, not only Daniil Hunter defensively, but they somehow finagled their way into getting Stephon Diggs just a couple weeks ago from the Buffalo Bills. So now that wide receiver room, Tank Dell, Stephon Diggs, Nico Collins, offensively they look great. They're headed in the right direction. This is gonna be a very, very tough game for the Minnesota Vikings. So I actually have us losing to the Houston Texans. We're sitting at 1-3 after week, or 1-2, excuse me, after week three. And then week four, the last game in September is in Green Bay at Lambeau Field. This should be a fantastic matchup. Going to be a tough one, though, especially with it being at Lambeau Field. We always have troubles with Green Bay at least one time in the season. Last year, I think we had troubles with them both times, unfortunately, especially that New Year's Eve game. That was horrendous. Needed to win that one to keep our playoff chances alive, I do believe, or I can't remember the exact scenario at that time. But we did not do good. Okay, we lost the game. But again, we didn't have Kirk Cousins at that time. But now we're rolling with Sam Darnold, right? It's going to be Sam Darnold for at least the beginning of the season. Who knows when J.J. McCarthy takes the role? I have us losing against Green Bay right there because it's in Lambeau. Again, we always have tough battles, but that offense, their defense kind of looks a little bit better than what we have rolling on our side of this, or on our sideline anyways. And hey, it's a revenge game for Aaron Jones. Maybe he has a stellar day, goes for a buck 50, a couple tutties. Who knows what's going to happen? As long as he keeps that hamstring intact, we should be all right. But again, I have us losing to Green Bay. So there's a 3-game losing stretch right there for us. 1-3 after week four. And then we travel to London at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, I believe is the name of that, to take on the New York Jets, the Aaron Rodgers-led New York Jets. Going to be a fun game. Plain and simple, we're going to keep this one easy. We're getting the dub, okay? I don't care who the Jets are. I don't care what team we were going to be playing in London. We're undefeated in London. We're going to keep it that way. We win this game in week 5, I do believe. So look, 2-3 going into the bye week, and then we have the dreaded Detroit Lions, not the same old Lions, the brand new Lions, a team that actually has a brand new look. Love their uniforms. Okay, it's gonna be visibly pleasing on the football field. But enough good talk about the Detroit Lions. Shout out to uh, Grid over there or Derek on the Lions Syndicate. This is gonna be a fun game. Detroit is the better football team. And really, we won't know how we're going to perform until we kind of get go into that bye week, how we're feeling coming back from London and stuff like that. But again, uh, Detroit's going to take this one. This is at home. Detroit comes away with a victory. We'll be sitting at 2-4, and then our first primetime game out of two primetime games this season. Thursday night football we have at the Los Angeles Rams in SoFi Stadium. Good matchup here. Again, all these matchups that we have this season, you're seeing them right now currently on the video. Um, it's not the schedule is nothing to kind of blink at. There's not a lot of good teams on this. There's not a lot of bad teams on it. We got a good mix. I think our strength of schedule is like 50.2% or something like that, which is pretty good. That's kind of where we want to be, especially if we want to have a chance of making the playoffs. But we're going to go and take on the Rams primetime Thursday night football on, I think that's October 24th. We're going to win that game. Okay, they have Matthew Stafford, they have Cooper Kupp. They really don't have a backfield. Okay, Kyron Williams, I believe, is who they have at the running back position. Yeah, Kyron Williams, and then they drafted Blake Corum, who's currently listed as their backup running back. Wide receiver wise, Puka Nakua, Cooper Kupp. And then you got Tyler Higbee at tight end. Defensively, they didn't really get any better other than adding Jared Verse, one of the top defensive edge rushers or outside linebackers in this year's draft. So again, I just don't see this team as being uh, able to beat our Minnesota Vikings. So I have us coming away with a victory against them. So that would put us at it, what, 3-3? See W. So 1-0, 1-2, or 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, or 2-3, 2-4. So we got 3-4 currently sitting at the Rams game, and then we're gonna go take on the Indianapolis Colts. This one's a home game. Gonna be a fun matchup. The Indianapolis Colts, I think the organization is moving in the right way. But again, let's just say Anthony Richardson is out. Okay, he's hurt or something like that. We will easily take this dub. I say that lightly, kind of. I just don't think Indianapolis has the firepower to beat us currently. They do have Jonathan Taylor in the backfield. They do have Michael Pittman Jr. Over there, and I do believe, can't remember off the top of my head who they drafted at or offensively, but I just think this is a game Minnesota comes away with a dub. But if Anthony Richardson's playing, it's going to be an interesting one. I think if he is playing, that adds another dynamic to their game, and it could be a tough one. Could come down to the wire, and Indy could get that win. But currently, as we sit, the way too early predictions, we're taking that one. So currently, we would be sitting at 4-4. I want to say is where I'm at. Yes, currently, and then we are going to travel down to Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, take on the Jacksonville Jaguars. That is a noon game on November 10th. Jacksonville, I don't trust that team. The offensive line is not that great. Trevor Lawrence basically has to do it himself, right? They lose a couple receivers. They lose Calvin Wrigley. I do believe they still have Christian Kirk. They did draft Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU, so that adds another dynamic to that offense. And Travis Etienne should be good in that backfield, but defensively, I don't like what they have going on over there. Offensively, they have some weapons, but how long can Trevor Lawrence stay protected? I don't believe in the Jacksonville Jaguars currently. So I think Minnesota comes away with the dub there, sitting at 5-4 after that game. And then the game that I will officially be going to 100%, November 17th at noon, we're taking on the Tennessee Titans in Nashville, Tennessee. That's going to be an absolute banger of a game. Two teams that you don't really know what you're going to get out of them. A lot of changes happening. Sam Darnold taking over for Kirk Cousins. And then you look over at the Tennessee Titans' new head coach, right? Bring in Calvin Ridley to pair with DeAndre Hopkins. Will Levis is going to be their full-time starting quarterback this season. So it's going to be really interesting to see his growth. And what he's been able to do this offseason with that team. Going to be a tough battle. That's a tough one. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna say I'm gonna go on a limb here. Minnesota gets that dub. It's gonna be a very chippy battle. It's just all going to depend on how much the Tennessee Titans buy into their new coaching staff and how well Calvin Ridley can produce. Because we all know D Hop's going to produce and how well Will Levis plays. But Minnesota comes away with a dub right there. So we'd be sitting at 6-4 at that point in the season. Then a tough game, even though you guys might say it's not. This is going to be a very tough matchup for years to come. We're going to the Chicago Bears noon on November 24th. Just drafted Caleb Williams. He's going to be their starter. So really what it's going to depend on is how well Caleb's playing down the stretch. And if he's looking like a great quarterback, he's going to come away with some dubs, okay? And this might be one of them. They added Keenan Allen over the offseason. They have Rome Odunze and DJ Moore's over there. I mean, they have a buttload of firepower offensively and defensively. Adding Montez Sweat last year was just a phenomenal addition to that team. They have more dogs on that defense. Going to be a battle. Minnesota loses at Chicago against the Chicago Bears. So currently I would have us sitting at 6-5 on the season. And then after that, on December 1st, a noon game, we're going to go down, or just kidding. This is a home game against the Arizona Cardinals, adding Marvin Harrison Jr. in this year's draft. Not much has changed with that team from what I can remember off the top of my head. Minnesota's going to win this one. Going to be fun to witness Marvin Harrison and Justin Jefferson kind of go at it, and hopefully it'll be fun to use Marvin Harrison in Madden if he ever decides to sign his NFLPA agreement and stuff like that. But well, that's for another time. But I think Minnesota comes away with a dub here. We'd be sitting at what is it? 1-0, 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 2-3, 2-4. 3-4, 4-4, 5-4, 6-4, 6-5. Winning at Arizona would put us at 7-5. And then the dreaded revenge game. Kirk Cousins coming back to Minnesota to take on our Minnesota Vikings at noon, which is a very, very surprising little piece of information there. December 8th, gonna be a fun game. Minnesota loses. Okay, plain and simple. This is prime time. Maybe I go the other way and say Minnesota wins, but with what Atlanta has down there offensively, I think their defense, even though, yes, they were ranked like 29th against the run up the middle, and another category that was just awful defensively for him, I still think adding Kirk Cousins to that offense will give him an extra dynamic, an extra, piece of motivation to maybe move the rock, put the rock in the end zone, and especially because Arthur Smith ain't there, right? They're going to use Bijan. Expect Bijan to have, probably 2,000 yards from scrimmage. Okay, this upcoming season, that's rushing and receiving combined, if you guys didn't know. But 1,500 yards rushing this season, I think Bijan will probably hit that mark if he stays healthy, if I had to assume. He's an absolute animal, and I think the head coach they got down there right now, Raheem Morris, is gonna utilize that weapon, especially because Kirk Cousins, great in the play action. It's going to be a tough battle against Atlanta, but again, like I said, we will be losing this game. So we'll be sitting at 7-6 going into a Monday Night Football matchup, our last of the two primetime games against the Chicago Bears at home. Monday Night Football in Minnesota on December 16th. Again, boy, as much as I like in years past, we always split with, the Chicago Bears. We split with Detroit. We split with Green Bay. It's like we go 3-3 in the division every single year. That didn't happen last year, obviously, but it's kind of what it feels like. Again, Chicago wins. I just think they have the better overall team. I just think that's what it boils down to. They have a lot of firepower, and yeah, that could bite them in the butt at some point in the year. But if they stay healthy, if they're 100% healthy, which is not going to be the case going into that week, they're going to come away victorious. It's going to be a tough season for us, and I think that's just kind of what we have to expect. It's not going to be all, confetti. It's not going to be great. So you just have to go in there with that mindset, knowing, hey, this ain't a Super Bowl team. That's not what we're going to do this season. If we do, boy, would I be pumped, especially with Sam Darnold at quarterback or even J.J. McCarthy. That ain't going to happen. But Chicago is going to be a tough game, especially on Monday Night Football. We will take the L there. So what? 7-7 after that week with only 3 games remaining. This is kind of where our season is going to be defined, like it was last year. Do we have a chance of making the playoffs? Currently, if we're sitting at 7-7, kind of a stretch, right? We're gonna have to win the last 3 to go 10-7 and maybe squeak into the playoffs. But if we lose one of these 3 games, which unfortunately I think we will, our playoff hopes are done. I don't think the Vikings will make the playoffs this season, unfortunately. But then we're going to go to, what is that, week 16? Yeah, week 16, December 22nd at 3:05. We're going to fly over to Washington and take on the Seattle Seahawks. I looked at their roster, not impressed. Okay, same team as last year. Didn't do anything defensively. Didn't do anything offensively. It felt like they have a pretty decent receiving core that is getting older. Okay, Tyler Lockett's getting older. DK Metcalf's getting older. He's still a dog. Jackson Smith Najigba is really, really good. If he can stay healthy, that team will be loving it. But Minnesota comes away with the dub in Seattle. Flying back to Minnesota at 8-7 on the season, taking on Christmas Eve the Green Bay Packers. This is where Aaron Jones, I think, balls out. I said buck 50, 2 touchdowns last time around, but he's going to ball out again. And shocker, Minnesota loses again to the Green Bay Packers, going 0-2 against them, going 0-2 against the Chicago Bears. And last but not least, last game of the season, sitting at 8-8, taking on the Detroit, or not 8-8. Yeah, 8-8. Yeah. We'll go through it again at the end. Taking on the Detroit Lions. We're in Detroit at Ford Field. Detroit probably already has the division on lockdown. Who knows? You never know. Okay, Chicago looking good. Green Bay's looking good. Minnesota, a lot of question marks. Okay, a little bit worried about this one, but we're not winning. Sorry about it. Okay, we're just not going to win. I'm trying to be as blatantly, how do you want to say it? I'm just trying to be real about what I'm seeing here. Now, again, these games are going to be changing throughout the season. This is just the way too early prediction of what's going to happen for our Minnesota Vikings. But I have us going 1-0 to start the season, then 1-1, 1-2, 1-3, 2-3 going into the bye week, and then we're losing again 2-4, 3-4. 4-4, and then at Jacksonville we win, so that'd be 5-4. Tennessee 6-4, Chicago 6-5, Arizona 7-5. Atlanta 7-6, Chicago 7-7, Seattle 8-7 going into the final 2 games. Losing to Green Bay, we're going 8-8. Losing to Detroit, we'll finish the year at 8-9. The Minnesota Vikings missed the playoffs barely because they needed to win at least probably one or all 3 of their last games. So I have the Minnesota Vikings again going 8-9 in the 2024 NFL season. You guys let me know your thoughts about this schedule and what you have the Minnesota Vikings record being at the end of the year. Also, drop a like and subscribe to the channel. It would be much, much appreciated. Have a great rest of the night, folks, and Skull Vikes.